Today, the 6th of Kislev, 5786, Tafshin Pevav. We are continuing to study the Chassidus of the Tzemach Tzedek on Umot, haOlam, the nations of the world, from Sefer Halikutim, Dach Tzemach Tzedek, page Taf Kuf Lamed Gimel, which would be 533, the bottom of the page. Taf Kuf Lamed Gimel, the last piece, and we're going to try to quickly review inside because we're towards the bottom of the page. We left off in the middle of this paragraph last time. So Taf Kuf Lamed Gimel, third paragraph. Ubir hadavar. Hinegam sheyesh ribu yishtal shalus beYoser. So even though there is a great amount of contractions that Hashem does as he's creating in the down chain, in the spiritual down chain, that this down chain of creation is continuously going from cause to effect, and the effect, the lower level, is not so distant from its cause. And it has a comparison. It's in the general same category because that's the cause of this effect. So therefore, there is a link, a connection that you can see between the two. And therefore, it doesn't come in changing its essence. And there's not such a jump from the cause to the effect in a way that they would be incomparable. But rather they are, you see the relationship. Therefore, even if you have myriads of this down chain of levels, so the original godly light or energy doesn't really change that much in essence from the first level, even though it could have gone through millions of levels, but ultimately the last one is connected to the second to last, and second to last to the one before that, and before that, and you could trace it back. It's just that when you get down to the bottom of this whole down chain, so over there, the godly light and the godly energy is extremely condensed, or it's very little, very much less in quantity. But in the essence state, or perhaps in the quality of the light, it's really the same light as right at the beginning as at the first stage. So they're really the same. It's just so many, it's one big chain. So it's, so many levels later, but one chain that it's all connected. That's in the normal down chain of Ila v'Alul, cause and effect. Right after the three dots. The Omnam, Yuvan Mizeh. However, from this will be understood. Behavdola So'erech, in the separation, Gam Besitra de Kalipa, also in the side of the Kalipa, of the shell, the non-holy, Shimhar Hoylechum Mishtal Shel Bohem, that if the godly light goes down on the side of the Kalipa, down further and further, and therefore they are close in relation. Gam shekol ikar sheresh harishin shelahem einer rak mibchina achrena shebekdusha hamitzumtzum beYoser kanizkar le'elu. Especially since the way the system works is that the highest level, the beginning of the klipa, where it's the least unholy, is actually coming and linked to the very lowest level and the lowest part of the holy, of the sacred. So it's really connected. Mikol Makim, nonetheless, however, you can't actually have that from this should be created something which is completely separate from Hashem, from holiness. And to have an entity that would be able to completely deny Hashem. That can't be. Ella kula moidim. Therefore, even in the worlds of klipa, even by the idolatrous people or whatever beings, they acknowledge, they admit, and they call Hashem the God of gods. It's just that this godly shine, this ray, this light is so condensed and it's so minimal. When it comes into them, in this down chain, because it goes through so many levels, to the extent that he's going to be able to say that the river is mine, I made it, as Paroi says. The Yuchol Limroid, and therefore this Klipa individual can rebel, V'laver Ratzon Hashem, and to transgress the will of Hashem. K'moi Shomer Paroi, as Paroi said, Mi Hashem asher eshma b'koiloi. When Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moses came to redeem the Jewish people, he came as the messenger of Hashem. So he tells Paroi, introduces himself, and he tells Paroi that I was sent by, and he uses the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, by Hashem. And Paroi's response is, who's Hashem that I don't know? Why should I listen to him? But they all, everybody knows and admits to the truth. And this is what the sages of blessed memory said. They know their master, and they are intentionally focused, and they want to rebel against him. However, im kol zeh, the acronym Ayin Chaf Zayin, im kol zeh. With all of this, having said that, ein zeh bechinas pirud gomur kol kach. It's not such an absolute separation from Hashem. Kumoi, like mishe makchish b'metzius orha leki legamre, like one who completely denies the existence of godly light. Totally. That's a complete denial. That's total separation. They're not like that. K'moi, al derech mashal, by way of a parable. Eved, a servant or a slave. Hamoyred ba'adoinoi, who rebels against his master, his owner. The gam shemoyred, that although he is rebelling, he's going against his master and he's rebelling against him. Ve'nei roitze, and he does not want lisa oil adoinov. He does not want to, so to say, carry the yoke, the burden of his master. He wants to be free. He doesn't want to work. He doesn't want to have this taskmaster over him who owns him. Mikol Makai, but nonetheless, this rebellious servant, Yoidea knows, Umoide, and he admits, Shehu Eved, that he is the slave, Vihu Adoinoi Malkoi, and he is his master and king. Rak, just, Sheinoi Chafetz Liyos Bevitul Elav. He does not want to be in a state of bittul. He does not want to have this self-nullification to his master, to the king. So he knows the truth. He just is not interested in working for him or being enslaved. Masha'ein kain, which is not the case. Hamoyred, one who rebels, be'ikar hamelucha, in the very core of the sovereignty of the majestic kingship or kinghood. Loimar, to say, she'einoi melech klal, he's not a king. He's denying that the king is the king. He says, no, he's not a king. He's just a regular anybody. He's a commoner. There's no king. Elohu HaMelech. but rather he says that he's the king, this slave. Now that's the highest form of mutiny, of course, when a servant of the king says, he's not the king, I'm the king. It's crazy. I mean, he would be fortunate if they would lock him up, as someone who's insane, because they would probably, kill him on the spot. Uchai gavna, or the like. That was just an example. Zeu anikra, such an individual is referred to as called moired gamur, a complete, an absolute rebel. Vihu inyan klipa de Sancheriv melech Ashur. And this is what we said in a previous piece. This is the klipa of Sancheriv, the king of Ashur. This is not Amalek, not Paroi, because they acknowledged that there's Hashem. They're just rebelling. Sancheriv is taking it to a completely different level. He is denying the existence of Hashem. He completely and totally denied the existence of Hashem. He said there is no such thing. I guess that would, in our language, that would be a full, complete atheist, which we're saying that idolaters are not atheists. Valkain, and therefore, Omar, he said, Sancheriv said, Mi b'chol elokei ha'aratzois, who amongst all the gods of the lands, lahashvois chas v'sholem im elokim acherim eitz v'even chuli. He is comparing all these other gods of wood or stone, v'koichavim u'mazolois, and stars and constellations, hoivim v'nifsadim, which all these things are temporary, they exist and they decay like every physical existence. It won't exist forever. It may go on for millions or trillions of years, but everything by nature ages. He did not believe at all Shehu Yisbarich, that he, Hashem, blessed be he, Kadmoin L'chol HaKedumim, is the precedes all precedences. Whatever you're going to say is a starting point, but where did that come from? So he denied that. Sort of like in philosophically arguing the theory of, against the theory of evolution and all that. So there's the famous line that people use, and they said, what went bang? Or who went bang? Or who went bang? In other words, all you've done is taken it back. You don't want to acknowledge that there is the creator. So you say there was the Big Bang. And where'd that come from? Who did that? And he's denying that Hashem is the cause of all causes. Kishar like the rest of the nations. He's not like them. The rest of the nations acknowledge that he precedes all, and he's the source for all. Like we keep on quoting the words of the Gemara, that they refer to Hashem as Elokah, the Elokaya. It's just that they don't want to worship him. They don't want to serve Hashem directly. Because they say, this is their mistake, that Hashem left the land. Uchai Gavna, or the like. Vidal, which stands for Vidai Lamavin, and that's sufficient. We need not elaborate anymore. That is sufficient for one who can understand. In other words, yes, it's a terrible, terrible mistaken philosophy. And yes, it is forbidden big time. And yes, it is a capital offense called Avodah Zarah. However, having said that it's so severe, but at the end of the day, Avodah Zarah, for the most part, acknowledges that there is Hashem. They just have a philosophy why they don't want to or why they can't worship him directly. Like Azav Hashem es Haaretz, that they say, well, yeah, of course, he's the creator of all, But now, don't shrink him. It's disrespectful to say that he's involved in every detail. What do you think? He has nothing better to do with his time? He's the creator of all, but he moved on. He's got bigger and better things to do, or whatever we can't perceive. So he created it, set it into motion, and he appointed all of these angels or stars or whatever it is. So obviously it's a terrible mistake, but at least they acknowledge the creator and that he's the boss of all bosses, and he's the cause of all causes, and the shaker of everything, and the maker of everything, ultimately. Whereas Sancheriv was an exception. And he said, nope, never happened, never existed, doesn't exist. And he's denying the real basic, fundamental, and therefore he's the one that's totally separated from Hashem. All right, so let's do the next piece. We're on page Tov Kuf Lamed Dalit, which would be 534, second paragraph. And this is same page as the previous one in the Tzemach Tzedek's original Or HaTorah, his original Chassidus. Oh. Yeah, not to be confused with the Alter Rebbe's Torah. It's Tzemach Tzedek's book, Anach. V'hinei, shoyresh zeh, the root of this, hapirud ha'atzum, the amazing separation, the intense separation that one can have from Hashem. Hinei huba, so it comes mipnei, because sheshayresh mazaloi de sancheriv, because what is the root of the spiritual energy, the mazal of sancheriv? Where does he come from? It's very high up in the side of klipa, shenikra adam b'liya'al, which is referred to as the rebellious adam. Bivchinas yinikas sairos. And this is what we mentioned before as well. This is the idea of him getting his nourishment in a way of hair, which is, we said, it's the life is so remote that you don't even feel any pain when you cut the hair, and the hair is getting symbolically, it's a funnel, it's a pipe, it's a hollow hair, and it comes out of the top of the skull, which means that it's getting from the brain, but there's like, it's so cut off and separated that you don't associate hair with intelligence of the brain at all. The Adam Zeh, this Adam that we're talking about, Bilvad, Shenikra Melech Zaken Uksil, so he's called by King Solomon the old foolish king. Ki es Zeh leumas Zeh asa olikim. Because there's a verse that says that whatever Hashem made, he made the opposite, the counterpart. Anything you have in Kedusha, you have its counterpart in the opposite. Meaning, that the drawing down, the flow of godly energy, that comes not in a way of cause and effect, but in a way of jumping, of skipping, of bypassing, where you don't see the connection between the lower level to its source, that you can't trace it back as a source. B'shinui amahus, because you're actually changing its essence. Like this idea of hair. You can't make any association between hair and intelligence in the brain. So just like you have that in Kedusha, from this, there can be there can then be nourishment for this very hard klipa. That it's totally separated from the realm of Kedusha. Liyos makrish legamre, to totally deny, v'liyos mahus bifnei atzmei legamre, and to be an entity unto itself, a different essence completely, as if it has nothing to do with Kedusha. As if it did not receive any light or any flow of any type of energy from the mashpia, from the one who's giving, from the one who's influencing. And he has no connection, nothing, zero attachment at all to him. Just like when it comes to the hair, just like the hair is so distant from the life of the brain or the rest of the body. It's like so external, and you don't see the connection that it has. It's just like completely externally just growing on the most external part of the body. Add to the extent when one will cut the hair, the individual will not feel any pain at all, not just not much pain, no pain as it's known. If so, so therefore their nourishment, these hairs that are receiving, have nothing to do regarding the light of this energy, of this vitality, which is coming from the one who's giving it. Which is the godly light. And therefore, that's how he's able to deny. That's how he could say Hashem doesn't exist. Nothing comes without, everything is from Hashem. But when it's like hair, so then it can deny and say, I have nothing to do with the brain or the body. And the proof is, cut it and it doesn't feel any pain. Oh. Okay, now from here to the end is one parenthesis. So let's see it. The hain. So who are these people? Okay, it's Sancheriv, but how does that translate into actual people? Who are they? Epikarsim. Oh. These are heretics. Shekoifrim b'Hashem legamre, that they completely deny the existence of Hashem. Ve'ena ma'aminim b'chidush ha'olam kayadua, and they don't believe in creation, that the world is a new thing that was created by a creator, as it's known. Shein lem aliyah v'tikun klal kayadua b'shem Abal Shem Tov Zal. And those people are so bad off, there's no hope for them. They have no elevation. There's no rectification for them. As it's known in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chasidus, he actually says what seems to be a very radical statement, but according to what we're saying now, we can appreciate it and understand it. But before you learn all this, it sounds very scary or very radical. And he says that the apikursim, which could even be, at least in past generations, a person who's Jewish, but an apikoirist, someone who categorically, well, actually, I take that back. It's an individual that completely denies the existence of Hashem. And there is no creator at all. He is worse off than a non-Jew who is an absolute, complete Oived Avodah Zarah and idolater. What's the proof? Sharei Losid Nemar, because what does it say about the future times of Moshiach? So there's a verse that says, famous verse, Oz epoichel amim chuli. And then I will transform to the nations a clear language, a clear tongue. V'naharu elav kol hagoyim chuli. And all the nations will come flocking, swarming to Hashem, to the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy Temple. How's that going to happen? All the nations? They're Avodah Zarah. What's going to happen in the Messianic era that they're going to suddenly be coming to Hashem? Because they believe in the oneness of Hashem. Rak, the only problem is because of the skin of the snake. Remember, that's the source.
Oh, the
So
klipa.
because of the skin of that original snake, nisgashmu beyoser, they became so physical, so materialistically coarse. Needs melahem, it appears to those people. Hanhaga hativis, the natural conduct. They think that it's being run by some lady called Mother Nature or by some stars, constellations, whatever their various beliefs are. But of course, they believe that there's Hashem Echad, Shezeu Ha'ikar, and they mistakenly think that that's the main thing. That Hashem is not the main thing. He's just the original source of everything. He's the creator. But then he put things and we need to, worship them and pray to them and all that. So in the future to come, in the times of Moshiach, Ksiv, the verse says, V'ra'u chol basar, and every flesh will see, because it's going to be after what we call the birur, the purification process of the separation of the good from the bad. So therefore, all of the goyim that are even of the avodah zara, we're not saying the good goyim that keep sheva mitzvahs in the time of galus, they're going to be the ones that are going to survive and come to the Beis Hamikdash. We're saying even the nations that are worshiping idolatry, they too are going to suddenly realize the truth, see their terrible mistake, and they're going to be coming to serve Hashem. Avulapi kursim, but these heretics, ein lohem aliyah gam le'asid, they don't have an elevation even in the future.
Wow.
Rather, ibudam zeo tikunam chuli, losing them, destroying them, that's their tikkun. The only way to rectify them is by complete annihilation. There's no hope for them.
Wow. So they're not even like the Umot haOlam.
Right, that's right. Wow. I mean, they are human beings, but
yes,
they're worse than Avodah Zarah.
Wow. And that's the times of Moshiach, right?
Yeah.
I read a little bit of Podo
V'Shalom?
Yes, thank you.
Which one?
Very good.
Which Rabbi? Which year?
I was trying to find the Mittler Rebbe. And I eventually did find it, but there's actually like three. There's the Fredericker Rebbe has one, and I think the Rebbe has one.
There's many.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that, and I'm banging my head trying to find it. I was looking for the Mittler Rebbe one, and I'm not saying the other ones don't talk about it, but it's talking about the Umot haOlam, how they can get rectified, how Hashem truly isn't even removed from them because Hashem is everywhere, but they just don't emanate from the klipa noga. It's not the easy klipa, so to speak.
Right.
And very, very interesting. Yeah, because people, and even I think a lot of Jews didn't know this because I said it in a chat group, and they're like, "Oh, I always thought that way, but I never knew the source." Because I always felt bad about thinking about non-Jews, like, "Oh, there's no saving them or anything like that." And then when we found the source, they're like, "Oh, this is wonderful." So they really liked it. So it's a good piece.
Right. So now I think we're at that stage. We're at the beginning of that because, as the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach said in 1991, that we've completed Avodas Habirurim, and now the Goyim are getting on board.
Oh,
I mean, obviously, so the process has begun. It doesn't have to happen in one instant that, whatever it is, several billion idolaters all of a sudden become believers and drop it all and come serving Hashem. It could happen that way too, but the process is already happening now.
That's amazing. And so, and I think you said it last time I was in Chicago, I think you might have read it from that when it comes to the chesed of the nations. And even though it might initially be for selfish motives or something, and I forget the details, so excuse me, I don't mean to speak, for you, but that was very interesting. And And so the Mittler Rebbe talks about how it's the second half of the Messianic era or something. And I'm sure you know all about this, but I'd love to, kind of running out of time. But like that all that kind of stuff is really curious.
Okay.
I love all that stuff. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's the theme of Yutes Kislev coming up. Pod of Shalom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought that's why you're getting into it because we're in Kislev.
No, I had it because I was thinking about meditating on, well, if Hashem is everywhere, and I thought this years ago, but I just never had the source for it. And then I just came across it. Some Chabadnik on the internet wrote a couple years ago, you should try Poto Besholem, and I was like, and he wasn't talking to me, and I was like, oh, so Hashem really is, going to be in the various klipas, right? Because Hashem is going to be everywhere. So I was like, how does that happen? And that's how I got into the Poda Basholem and the mechanics that the Mittler Rebbe was teaching in it, like how it kind of happens. I'm very interested in all that.
Yeah.
So it's tied to Utes Kislev.
Right.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Turen. And
All the best.
God
Sure.
willing, see you tomorrow night.
In Meretz Hashem.
Well.
Okay. Yechia Melech.